Hey everyone, so today we are going to talk about awkward sentences. We're going to work on what makes a sentence awkward, how we can avoid it, and how we can fix it so that we can work on our clarity and our phrasing for our papers and all of our future writing. So, what are some things that make a sentence awkward? This isn't all of them, but these are going to be some of our focuses today. It's language that's poorly chosen, inappropriate, and by that I don't mean swearing or offensive, I mean using something in a wrong way or in the wrong place, and unnecessary. So a lot of people get into the habit of page lengths and word counts, and you start to fill up your writing with unnecessary words that just takes it longer for the reader to see your point or prevents them from getting there. So our words are like tools, just as our punctuation is, and we need to make sure we're using the right words for the right tasks. So words that have little or no meaning. There are words and phrases that have little to no meaning that we fill space when we talk, especially when we're talking because we have to think while we're doing it. But we don't need those in writing because we can go and we can edit and we can take our time to do the writing. It's not a spur of the moment. So some of those examples are kind of, actually, in particular, really, various, certain, virtually, individual, basically, generally, given, practically. Things like these words are what we use to fill space when we're talking, and we can get into the habit of putting them in our writing, and we want to try to start eliminating those. So let's look at an example. Procrastination actually makes certain people really unsuccessful, more than virtually any other particular habit. So look at this for a second, and you can pause it and think about what words we could eliminate. So when we look at the sentence and we take out those words, we can get rid of actually, certain, really, virtually, and particular. And then if we read the sentence without those words, procrastination makes people unsuccessful more than any other habit. It gets to the point, it's concise, and it's much clearer to the reader.
It's repetitive and redundant. It's repetitive and redundant. We certainly are entertaining, Mac. Indubitably.
Okay, so another thing that we do in writing is we're repetitive and redundant. We say things more than once, both in the points we're trying to make, but also on a word level. So this is a habit that a lot of people get into either because they think it makes them sound smarter or because they're trying to reach a certain minimum number of words for assignments. So it's tempting to use several words of a description instead of one well-chosen word with the same meaning. So we always want to make sure we're choosing the best word that we can and not just putting multiple words that mean kind of the same thing because we don't know which one to use. But this makes our sentences awkward and it interrupts the flow of our writing. So we want to eliminate words that simply rephrase other words for no real purpose. So let's look at some examples. The football team made future plans to completely concentrate on the basic fundamentals of each individual position. So look at this, pause it, think of what the redundancies are, and cross out the words, either on a piece of paper or in your head, that we would get rid of that don't need to be there. Okay, so number one, plans are always in the future. You can't plan for the past, so we don't need future plans. Concentrating implies focus, so we don't need completely concentrate. If you're concentrating, you're concentrating. You can't be partially concentrating. Fundamental means the same thing as basic. Okay, the basics are the fundamentals. And positions are individual. When we're talking about a position, it's for a particular person or individual. So if we take out those things, we can get rid of future, completely, basic, and individual, and have the football team made plans to concentrate on the fundamentals of each position. And that's a lot easier to read than the football team made future plans to completely concentrate on the basic fundamentals of each individual position. Okay, so we want to cut those words out. We don't need those redundancies in there. Some other common redundancies that people either say a lot or use a lot in their writing are whole entire. Okay, those mean the same thing. Terrible tragedy. A tragedy, by definition, is terrible. Pitch black. Various different. They mean the same thing. True facts. Facts are always true. Free gift. A gift is always free. Final outcome. The outcome is always at the end, is the final thing. So let's look at an example. The dinosaurs that were green colored were few in number during that period in history. So pause it, see what you would get rid of, how you would change it. So there were few green dinosaurs during that period. So periods, such as the one in the sentence, are always periods of history. Few is always referring to a number. And green is a color. We don't need green colored. If you say something's green, we know you're talking about a color. So these words often appear in phrases, and they become cliches that we just say without thinking. So let's look at another example. I hope you give this matter your full and complete attention. So what would we get rid of there? What's redundant? So full and complete, it's a thing we say a lot, but we don't need both of those words. They mean the same thing. So I hope you give this matter your complete attention. We don't need the full and. Some common double word phrases where we have that and. Pick and choose. If you pick something or you choose something, same thing. Full and complete, we just talked about that. Hope and trust. Any and all. True and accurate. Right? If something's true, it's going to be accurate. Each and every. Basic and fundamental. We just looked at that one in another example. Hopes and desires. First and foremost. The foremost thing is always first. So those are just some examples of ones that we say a lot and we don't think about, but we don't actually need both of them. So another way is that we phrase things weirdly by giving the negative instead of the positive or the affirmative. That helps get rid of extra words in our sentence and makes things less complicated. A lot of times it's not. You're not being quiet, for example. You're being loud. Okay, we have that not in front of something instead of just using the opposite word. So let's look at this example. She wore a sweater that was not different than mine. So let's identify our not different. What's the opposite of different? What does not different mean? It means the same. She wore the same sweater as mine. So we got rid of all of those words just by using the affirmative version. Another way we use negatives is double negatives, and they make your writing sound more confusing. And some words are negative just by definition, by what they mean is negative. So preclude, exclude, fail, reject, avoid, deny, prohibit, refuse. Those are saying the absence of, or against, without. Those are saying lacking again. They're the negatives, not the affirmatives. So when we use a bunch of these negative words all together to make our point, it can be really difficult to understand. So let's look at this example. Without failing to refuse denying an invitation, you have not avoided precluding buying a gift. Read the sentence again, and how would you write it? How would you take the sentence and write what it means in a less confusing way? Now pause it, so just give that a try right now. Refuse denying means accepting, right? If you're not denying something, you're accepting it. Without failing, doing. Not avoided, so you're not avoiding it. You're committing to it or agreeing to it. Precluding buying gifts. So what the sentence means is, by accepting an invitation, without failing to refuse denying an invitation. By accepting an invitation, you have agreed to buy a gift. You have not avoided precluding buying a gift. So see how confusing that first sentence is? And a lot of times people do this because they think that saying the sentence in such a simple way makes their writing seem less educated, but having a clear, concise point is going to present you as a better writer, and you're not going to be just confusing your reader. Your readers aren't going to appreciate that. They're going to appreciate clarity over the complexity that you think that you might be adding by doing these things. So there's no substitute for having a good vocabulary. The more words you know, the more often you'll be able to replace whole sentences or phrases with one word because you happen to know that word. So when you increase your vocabulary, you're going to make your writing more powerful, more concise, and more effective. And the best way to do that is to read. The more you read, the more words you learn through context and through looking them up. So reading is the best way to expand that vocabulary. But the better your vocabulary is, the more effective your writing is going to be. And that doesn't mean to just use words because you know them, but you'll have the right tools. You'll increase your tool set for your writing. Instead of trying to use the back end of a screwdriver to nail something in, you'll have the hammer. So you'll have the correct tools for the right instances. So that vocabulary is just building up those tools that you have. Doesn't mean you always need to use them, though. So we come to the thesaurus, which sometimes is a student's best friend, in quotes, but it can also be their downfall. A thesaurus can help you find the words you want to use, just like spell check can help you or grammar check can help you, but it can change your piece in ways that you may not want it to. It's not going to know what your whole sentence is, it's not going to know what your thought process is, so it's going to give you a word potentially that is similar to yours, but it may not be the right word. And when you do this, it throws your tone of your writing off, because all of a sudden your reader starts to get to know your voice and your writing, and then there's this word or these several words that kind of you looked up to replace things, and you might be using it incorrectly, or it can just be like, wait, that doesn't sound like our writer. And not all words offered in a thesaurus are exact synonyms. They're related to each other, but they may have different connotations and different denotations. So different definitions and different kind of moods about them. So if you look at the word loud and noisy, right? They're similar to each other, but noisy has a much more negative connotation than loud. They're not quite the same thing. For an example, if we look at the word freedom, say you're using the word freedom too often in your essay or whatever it is, and you do want word variation. You don't want to constantly be saying the same word, and you would look it up in a thesaurus and you'd find liberty there. Now, this would work if your sentence was saying, our founding fathers fought for liberty. In that case, replacing freedom with liberty works. They don't mean the exact same thing, but fought for liberty is a close enough thing to fought for freedom. Also in that thesaurus under freedom, you would find looseness. Now, that would work if you were talking about a piece of clothing or something like that, but if we tried to replace it in our sentence, our founding fathers did not fight for looseness, right? Our founding fathers fought for freedom and liberty. Those can interchange, but they didn't fight for looseness. Even though it'll appear in the thesaurus, it's not the correct word to be using. And if we look at, I just picked the word and put it into the thesaurus, I looked up magnetic, and we got hypnotic, irresistible, seductive, alluring. Now, if I was talking about something being magnetic or the, minerals and science, and I put hypnotic in there, that would not be the right word, even though it shows up as related in the thesaurus. So you have to make sure that you're using the words correctly and you're not relying on the thesaurus to do the thinking for you. It's going to present you with options, but you have to choose the words. And it also can't help you replace your phrases, especially when you're trying to shorten things. So phrases like in the event of, or in the event that, that's just if. In the event that we go to war, if we go to war. Concerning the matter of, I'm here concerning the matter of oatmeal. I'm here about oatmeal. Are in a position. Are you in a position to go to the beach? Can you go to the beach? The reason for. The reason for my lateness was traffic. Why I was late was traffic. Because of the fact. We don't need the of the fact. Because. So if we look at an example, in the event that every union member decides to vote, we will have a huge turnout. So we have that in that event, so we just put if there. If every union member decides to vote, we will have a huge turnout. It's clear and it doesn't have as many words. So let's talk about fool's gold, which is related to the thesaurus. It's pretentious language. So you don't want to sit there and use pretentious language, lots of long words and abstract things, because you feel like you need to sound smarter. If you're writing correctly, mechanically, grammatically, and you're using words correctly, you don't need to have these big, quote-unquote, smart-sounding words to make your paper sound educated. Your argument is what's going to make you sound educated. You don't want to try and sound impressive. You want to make your meaning clear. Having your reader agree with your conclusion or your thesis at the end is more important than trying to use a bunch of big words to show them that you're smart. So let's look at some examples. I need your assistance at present. Doesn't sound natural, right? So what does that really mean? I need your help now, right? Present, now, assistance, help. Let's get another one. At this point in time, the president is endeavoring to sleep. Nobody talks like that. The president is trying to sleep now. Just be straightforward and get your points across. Don't worry about trying to use these big words. Because what you're doing then is you're presenting something because you think it makes it look more valuable, but it's not. What's valuable is the content, the substance of your argument, not how much it shimmers and shines and how you present it in a way that you feel is more elevated. So let's look at some ways. Begin and commence. Begin is real. Commence, unless you're talking about a commencement ceremony, that's just trying to elevate your language, but it's unnecessary. eat and consume. If I was to say to my friend, do you want to go eat some pizza? That's normal. Do you want to go consume some pizza? Sounds weird. Ask or inquire. Did you ask your mom yet? Did you inquire? It doesn't sound as natural. Friendly and amicable. That dog is really friendly. That dog is really amicable. I mean, some of these words, if they're in your vocabulary and they are natural to you, I'm not saying you can never use these words, but don't try and use them to make yourself sound smarter because you think that you need them for your reader to think that your argument is good. Your reader is going to think your argument is good, not because of the way in which you have all these big shiny words, but the substance that it's made of. Leave, depart. I'm leaving. I'm departing. Meet, encounter. Do you want to meet at campus? Do you want to encounter each other at campus today? So just try and sound natural. Again, I'm not saying you can't use words if one of these words is one that you use a lot. Don't get in your head about it. Just make sure that you're keeping your voice and you're not trying to sound like someone else because you don't think that your voice is good enough. Your voice is fine. You just have to make sure that your argument is strong. So, I believe this is probably where we will take a temporary reprieve from awkward phrasing PowerPoint displays. Despite the fact that our class may not be over, instead we will alternatively work on enacting the implication of these practices. In other words, we're done talking about different awkward sentence things right now, and I'm going to have you go do the assignment to practice fixing some of them and applying it. Sorry that we didn't get to meet, but hopefully this is helpful, and I will try and be available in the Google Meet on Monday for some hours in case anybody's confused. If you are confused and you need to talk to me before you do the assignment, that's fine. Don't worry about it. We can talk and then you can do it. So good luck, and we'll continue working on these pretty much every week until the end of the semester. All right, thanks.